He saw her for the first time when he was chasing his hat down a street he never meant to walk, on a wind-punched Tuesday that had already been clawing at his nerves since dawn, and she caught it with one hand while balancing a bag of oranges in the other like it was nothing, like she did that kind of thing all the time, like life didn't stagger her anymore no matter how absurd it got. She didn't smile when she handed it to him, just looked at him with eyes that had weather in them, dark and far off and a little unimpressed, and he stared longer than he should have, not because she was beautiful in any obvious way, but because she wasn't, not in the way the girls on campus aimed to be, all angles and engineered edges, but in the way the pages of an old journal are, creased, unpredictable, and carrying too much that hasn't been said aloud. She turned away like it hadn't happened, like she didn't expect thanks or care about conversation, and that should have been the end of it, should have just been a one-line story he'd tell his roommate before bed and forget by morning. But instead, when he passed the produce stall the next day, she was there again, bag slung over her shoulder, focused on lemons this time like they were ancient artifacts, and he stopped before he meant to, hands buried in his coat, wondering if she'd recognize him, wondering if he'd even registered to her at all. "You stalking me, Hat Boy?" she asked without turning, her voice calm and disinterested but sharp enough to cut rope, and he laughed because it caught him off guard, the way she could make him feel like a kid pretending to be older than he was. And when she finally did look at him, he caught the faintest trace of a grin, not indulgent but curious, like she was letting him into a joke halfway through just to see what he'd do with it. "I figured you owed me a second chance," he said, running a hand through his damp hair and trying to sound older than 21, which had never seemed like a child until he was standing next to her. "Second chance at what?" she said, brushing her coat sleeve where the citrus scent had clung to it. "At saying thank you. Or maybe something smarter. Haven't decided yet." She considered him like he was a wine label in a language she didn't speak. "You're in college, I'm guessing," she said finally. "And you're not," he replied. She laughed once, soft and strange, like a sound she hadn't made in years and wasn't sure she still knew how. "No, I'm not." That's usually the part where people back off. "I'm not people," he said, and then regretted it instantly, but didn't take it back. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just gave him a look that felt like a hallway with too many doors closed, then shrugged. "Naomi. Lucas." That was all. No handshake. No exchange of numbers. Just the wind dragging hair across her face and her expression unreadable as she walked off with her bag of lemons and left him standing there, not sure whether he'd made a mistake or a beginning. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was fascination. She carried something in her posture, in the deliberate way she moved, like she'd once cared too much and now carefully avoided caring at all. He started showing up at the market once a week, always in the late afternoons when the shadows got long and the vendors got tired. And sometimes she was there, and sometimes she wasn't, but when she was, they'd talk about dumb things at first, weather and grocery prices and the absurdity of public transport, but then about books, music, politics whispered between the stalls like secrets, and he learned she had been a teacher once, years ago, quit for reasons she never explained, and that she didn't like small talk, never dated anymore, and refused to use any app that asked her to build a profile. "People aren't profiles," she said once while peeling a tangerine on the curb outside the bookstore. "You want to know me, you do it the hard way." He did. They never said what it was. There were no declarations, no labels, no talks about age or boundaries or the lines they were quietly dancing over. It started with the walks home, then became coffee at odd hours, then long stretches of conversation that made the world feel like something they'd built between them. He never told his friends. She never asked about them. He started writing papers about things she'd said and quoting her like she was just another source. One night, in late March, when the rain was too light to be serious but too steady to ignore, they sat under a half-broken bus shelter while her shoulder pressed against his like it wasn't on purpose, and he said something about how the sky looked like it was holding its breath. "You say things like that a lot," she murmured, staring forward. "Like what?" "Like you're afraid life's not interesting enough unless you name it something else." "Is that a bad thing?" "No," she said, and her voice dropped a little, softer now, like she didn't mean to let it be heard. "It just means you're not bored yet." He looked at her then, really looked, saw the faint lines at the edges of her mouth, the kind that didn't come from smiling, the silver thread at her temple, the way her hands trembled slightly when still, and he felt something in his chest shift like a gear locking into place. She caught him staring and sighed, turning to him, brushing hair out of her face with a gesture that felt like she'd done it 1,000,000 times for 1,000,000 different reasons. "What? I don't know," he said. "I think I like that you're not trying." "Trying what?" "To be anyone." That was when she kissed him. No prelude. No warning. Just leaned in and kissed him like she'd made a decision and wasn't going to explain it. And he didn't say anything after, didn't make a joke or a comment or even a sound. They just sat there, the rain around them, their breath in the air, and something new beginning. She stood first. "I have to go." "Okay." She hesitated. "Don't follow me." "I won't." But he watched her go, every step, until she vanished behind the lights, and something in him felt like it had finally found the beginning of a real sentence. The next time they met, they didn't talk about it. They just sat, drank coffee, and let their knees touch beneath the table. Neither of them smiled much. But when they did, it wasn't for anyone else. She told him not to come to her street, not because she was ashamed, but because it would raise questions she didn't want to answer. Her apartment was in a brick building with ivy strangling the windowsills and a front stoop that collected dead leaves like secrets. He never asked her why she lived there, in that part of the city where the cafes closed early and the neighbors didn't smile, but he wondered. When she did let him in, finally, it was not an invitation, it was a warning. Her living room was small, dim, stacked with books instead of pictures. There were no signs of another life, no family portraits, no hints of anyone else ever having mattered, only stacks of notebooks, a broken record player, and a plant that was either dying or refusing to. She didn't apologize for the silence. She didn't pour wine or light candles. She just told him to sit and watched him like she expected him to flinch from the honesty of it. "I was married once," she said without looking up, flipping through a battered notebook. "Didn't last. People get tired of each other faster than they admit." "Were you tired? Or was he?" he asked, not because he wanted to dig, but because she had never volunteered anything before and he wasn't sure how long the door would stay open. "Doesn't matter," she replied. "It ended. That's what matters." He waited, expecting more, but she stood and moved to the kitchen like the subject had died on impact. He didn't follow. Instead, he looked around again, this time searching for something to prove he wasn't wasting his time chasing someone who had no space left. He found a photograph wedged behind a lamp, 2 kids standing on a beach, squinting at the sun. The photo had faded, colors blurred, but the boy in it looked enough like her to make him pause. She came back and saw it in his hands. "Don't ask," she said. He put it back. The first crack in what they had didn't come from inside, but outside. It came with whispers. Not the ones you hear directly, but the ones you feel around the corners of rooms. Someone from campus, a girl in his film class, mentioned seeing him with someone off campus, someone older. Her voice had that soft, poisonous tone people use when pretending to care. Just wondering if everything's okay. She looked like someone's mom. That was how it started, casual enough to ignore, but loaded. He didn't answer. She looked disappointed that he didn't take the bait. He tried to shake it off, told himself people always talk, but it didn't stop. A professor made a comment about distractions outside your peer group after he missed a seminar. A friend teased him about dating someone seasoned and then asked if she was rich. That was the line he couldn't laugh off. When he told Naomi about it, she didn't flinch. "You knew this wasn't going to stay hidden forever," she said, folding laundry that didn't smell like anything. "I didn't think it would happen like this. You thought you could keep me in a bubble, away from all your noise. You can't." "It's not noise," he said. "It's my life. And this is mine," she replied. "We made a mistake thinking we could sew them together. Is that what this is to you? A mistake?" She stared at him long enough that he looked away first. "I didn't say that," she said finally. "But I've made enough mistakes to know when I'm making another one." He wanted to argue, but her voice wasn't angry. It was tired, like someone bracing for something inevitable. A week later, a letter arrived at her door. Not from anyone he knew. The envelope was blank, the paper unlined, the handwriting sharp and deliberate. She didn't let him read it. She burned it in the sink. He watched the edges curl into black spirals and didn't speak until it was gone. Who was it from? "It doesn't matter." "I think it does." She turned to him, arms crossed, smoke still curling near her hair. "Someone who wants you to stop playing house with a woman twice your age. Are they from your life or mine?" Both, she said. The next few days, she didn't answer when he called. When he showed up at the bookstore where she sometimes hid, she wasn't there. He left a note, but it rained that day, and when he came back later, it was gone. Paper dissolved on the ground. The ink bled into nothing. When she finally called, her voice was flat. Don't come here. Why? Because I can't keep being a lesson for you. You're not. I am, she cut in. You'll grow from this. You'll write about it someday. I'll just go back to being something you don't talk about in front of anyone else. I never thought of you like that. You will. The line went dead. He stood there in his apartment, the quiet pressing in, and realized he didn't even know her middle name. He waited until almost 2 in the morning before calling again, sitting on the edge of his bed with the phone pressed to his ear, staring at the glow of his computer screen that showed nothing important, just assignments he wasn't finishing and emails he hadn't answered. She didn't pick up, which didn't surprise him anymore. But the silence that came after he hung up felt worse than the sound of her voice telling him to stay away. He walked outside, past the buildings that all looked the same at night, through streets emptied of everything but traffic lights and bad decisions, until he found himself near her block, not close enough to make her think he was checking in, but far enough to feel like he hadn't fully given up. He knew it was reckless. He knew she wouldn't want to see him. He also knew none of that mattered when someone had already started filling space inside your days without permission. He didn't knock. He didn't call again. He stood across the street from her building and watched the lights in her window. They were off. He stayed anyway. The cold kept him awake. Around 4, he went home, still unsure whether what they had was ending or just bruised. 2 days passed. He stopped checking his phone every hour. He stopped trying to explain it to people who asked where he'd been or why he wasn't around anymore. Everyone had their own theories. Some thought he was depressed. Others thought he was caught up in something shady. No one guessed the truth, which made it worse. It meant what they had didn't fit into the categories people understood. She called again the following week. No greeting, no preamble. I don't sleep much, she said. I don't either. Do you want to talk or just sit in it? I'll talk if you do. She paused. Then, I miss you in ways I wish I didn't. He didn't answer right away. Then, that's something. I can't change how this looks, she said. And I can't fix what people say about it. You're still in a world where those things matter. I'm not. I didn't start this to impress people. You didn't start this to lose them either. Maybe they were never worth keeping if this is what ends it. You don't believe that. I think I do now. Another pause. Then she said, come over, but don't bring anything. Just come as you are. He was already out the door before she finished. When he arrived, she let him in without a word. Her eyes looked swollen, like she hadn't slept, but her voice was steady. They sat on the floor instead of the couch, knees touching, and didn't speak for a long time. She had turned off the lights and left the window open, and he could hear the city in the background, a dull rhythm that reminded him they were still part of something larger, even if no one else approved of it. He finally said, I don't care if people think it's weird. You will eventually, she said. No, I won't. She looked at him like she didn't believe him, but didn't have the energy to argue. He stayed the night. They didn't sleep much. They talked. About real things. About her brother, who she hadn't spoken to in years. About the friend she lost when she turned 40 and decided not to pretend anymore. About the job she left after being passed over for someone younger, someone louder. He told her about his father who pushed too hard. About the girl he almost proposed to last year because everyone else thought he should. About the way he felt like a placeholder in his own life. She told him she felt human again when she was with him. He told her he didn't feel like a kid anymore when he was with her. Neither of them said the word love, but it hung between them like something that would eventually demand to be addressed. A few days later, they met again in public for the first time in weeks. A late evening walk by the lake, hands brushing occasionally, never fully touching, until they passed a woman with a dog who glanced at them, then back again, this time slower. Naomi froze. The woman's eyes lingered. Lucas recognized her vaguely from campus, possibly a teaching assistant or someone in admin. She said nothing, just raised her eyebrows and walked on. But the damage was done. Naomi pulled her hand away. He said, You don't even know her. She knows you. So what? So now she knows me too. He wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that people's opinions couldn't undo what they had, but he could see it already written in her face. The wall was coming back up. They didn't talk the rest of the way. When they reached her building, She looked at him with something fragile under her expression. I don't know how long I can keep doing this, she said. You're not the only one getting looked at, he replied. That's the point, she said. You shouldn't be. He didn't go upstairs with her. She didn't ask. He went home and lay awake until sunrise, wondering how long you could keep something alive just by wanting it enough. When it finally happened, it was at a faculty mixer he had no business being at, held in the renovated ballroom of a hotel that had been around since long before he was born. He had come as a favor to one of his professors, a man who liked to use him as an example of a motivated communicator, someone who could speak without notes and charm donors without trying. The room was filled with people he barely knew, all drinking from glasses that didn't match and speaking in a tone that suggested they were constantly being listened to. Naomi hadn't planned to be there. She hadn't told him she'd be attending at all, but when he saw her across the room, standing beside a group of administrative staff near the bar, her expression locked into something neutral and unreadable. His stomach turned, not with fear, but with something worse, certainty. She didn't notice him at first. Or if she did, she pretended not to. She was dressed in a way that made her blend in with the older crowd, simple and sharp, but he could tell she wasn't comfortable. Her shoulders were too stiff, her hand wrapped too tightly around the stem of her glass. He crossed the room slowly, trying to ignore the heat climbing his neck. He didn't know if he should approach her, but not doing so felt worse. She looked up just as he reached her. This isn't where I thought I'd see you again, he said quietly. I was invited, she said, voice calm but clipped. So was I? She glanced past him, then back at her group, then returned her eyes to his with a look that said she knew what was coming before it came. Lucas, this isn't the place. Every place is the place once it starts falling apart, he said, because the silence between them had lasted too long. Not here, she repeated. Not with these people. One of the women beside her, a middle-aged dean with earrings shaped like birds, leaned in slightly, clearly listening. Naomi noticed and stepped away. Lucas followed. I didn't plan to talk to you here, he said as they moved toward a corner of the room. But you are. Because we've been pretending this thing we have can survive if no one else knows about it. And now they do. Not all of them. Enough. She looked at him with something that resembled sadness, but didn't fully become it. You don't owe them anything, he said. I don't owe them, but I do live among them. So do I. You don't understand, she said. They don't just talk. They isolate. Quietly. Effectively. And you're scared of that? I'm tired of starting over, she said, and for the first time, her voice cracked just slightly. I've already spent too many years watching people turn when the air changes. Then don't let them turn you too. Someone nearby raised their voice, trying to make a toast. A few claps followed. The noise swelled and died. Naomi looked like she was deciding whether to walk out or vanish. A man from the administration team, someone Lucas only knew by reputation, approached them. Didn't expect to see you two together, he said, smiling too wide, eyes darting between them. Are we mentoring students this closely now, Naomi? Lucas turned to face him directly. We're not hiding anything. The man raised an eyebrow. No need to get defensive. You came over here to imply something. Lucas said, louder this time. So let's not pretend you didn't. The room quieted slightly. Conversations thinned. Naomi's hand brushed his arm, not for comfort, but as a warning. I think it's time we left, she said. The man gave a small, fake laugh. No need for drama. Lucas didn't move. Naomi did. She stepped in front of him, squared her shoulders, and for the first time since he'd known her, she raised her voice enough for everyone nearby to hear. We're together. It's not an internship. It's not a mistake. It's not temporary. So you can stop whispering about it. A few gasps. Some uncomfortable chuckles. A pause that lasted just a little too long. The man blinked. Well, that's certainly clear. She turned and walked away before anyone else could respond. Lucas followed her out of the room, past the curious stares, the confused faces, the tightening judgment. Outside, the air was cooler, sharper. The sound of music faded behind them. I didn't want it to happen like that, he said once they reached the edge of the parking lot. It had to happen somehow, she replied, not looking at him. You didn't hesitate. I couldn't, she said. If I did, you'd think I regretted it. Do you? She stopped walking. No, but I don't think it changes anything either. He exhaled. So what now? She finally turned toward him. Now we decide if surviving everyone else is worth breaking each other in the process. He didn't know the answer. Neither did she. They stood there until the night was just night again. He didn't see her for 11 days. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't check the bookstore or her apartment or the cafe where they used to sit and act like time didn't belong to them. She didn't reach out either, which made it worse, because it meant she was giving him room to think, not because she wanted to disappear, but because she respected the possibility that he might want her to. Those 11 days felt longer than all the months that came before, not because they were dramatic or filled with heartbreak, but because they were empty in the way real endings often are, quiet, dry, still. He went to class. He turned in papers. He ate when reminded. He smiled when spoken to. No one mentioned the mixer. No one asked questions anymore. It was as if the entire thing had burned through their attention spans and settled into the forgettable corner of collective memory. But he hadn't forgotten, and he knew he wouldn't. On the 12th day, she showed up at his apartment without warning. She didn't knock like someone uncertain. She knocked like someone who had already decided that whatever happened next, they wouldn't let it go unsaid. He opened the door, and she stepped inside without waiting for him to invite her. She looked rested but guarded, like someone who had made peace with her own decisions and was now preparing for someone else's. "I won't stay long," she said. "You can. That's not why I came." He shut the door slowly. "I didn't reach out because I didn't want to push you into anything," she continued. "Not because I was angry. Not because I changed my mind. I know. I didn't know if you were done, and I didn't want to make it harder if you were. I wasn't done." She didn't smile. She didn't soften. "But I also don't know if we can go back to what we had before," he added. "I didn't come here to ask for that." "Then what do you want?" "I want to stop pretending that either of us knows how to hold this," she said. "I thought I could be someone who ignored the way people looked at us. I thought I could be indifferent to the things they said. I thought I had done this life long enough to know what it means to be misunderstood. But I didn't realize how different it would feel when it wasn't just about me." He sat down, not because he was tired, but because he felt like if he stayed standing, he might say something wrong. "You mattered to me," she said, looking at him now. "And I don't mean like a phase or a story I'll tell someday when I feel nostalgic. I mean you woke something up in me I had honestly started to believe was gone. I didn't expect that. I didn't plan it. But I felt it. Still do. I never thought you were a phase. I know you didn't. Then why does it feel like we're closing this off? Because I don't want to keep hurting you with the cost of being with me. And I don't want to be the reason you start lying to yourself just to keep things peaceful. I haven't lied to myself once. You've been quiet since that night," she said. "Not just with me. With yourself. You're trying to figure out how to be okay with what this means. And that's not something I can help you with. That's something you have to do on your own." He nodded, slowly. "I don't regret us," she said. "I don't regret a single thing. But I also don't want you to look back at this and feel like I stole time from you. You didn't. Maybe not now. But later. People tell themselves things when they need to move forward. I've done it. I don't want to move forward. Then what do you want? I want to keep seeing you. I want to stop thinking about who's watching. I want to stop caring what they say. I want to stop treating this like it's a problem to solve instead of something that makes me feel like I'm actually choosing my own life. And if the judgment gets worse, I'll deal with it. And when you graduate, when your world starts shifting again, I'm not looking for a map, Naomi. I'm looking for a reason not to go back to being who I was before you." She walked toward the window and looked out at the street. Cars moved slowly. People passed by unaware of anything except their own steps. "I don't know how to promise anything anymore," she said. "But I know I'd rather be honest with you and lose this than fake it and keep it under false terms." He stood up. "So what now? We don't owe anyone a performance," she said. "We don't owe them explanations or apologies. We just owe ourselves the truth." He walked over, standing beside her, not touching her. "And what's yours?" he asked. "I'm still here," she said. "That's all I've got." He nodded. "I'm still here too." Neither of them said anything else. There were no declarations, no decisions, no plans, just silence, and the sound of two people still choosing, even when the answers weren't clear.